It's garbage covered in hot sauce. You okay?
And that's how the garbage covered the hot sauce.
That's
Sounds
right.
like a catchphrase.
That's how the garbage covered the hot sauce.
Hello! Sonic City Council is now in session. Thank you once again for inviting us into your headphones, your car, your home, your mind. We appreciate you very much, citizens. What up, Davey Sipes?
Hi, how are you doing there, Davidson?
Oh, Jabel Davidson.
Yes. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I used to play bass for Jabel Davidson.
Did you?
Yeah.
Really? Is that how you got his name? Because he's your real dad?
Yes, exactly. Assumed his identity.
We'll get back to you in a second. Citizens, hi. It's me, Thelonious Werewolf. We're here again for Sonic City Council. Now in your mind, imagine Mark Bolan.
Ooh, interesting.
Isn't that what we said in like one of the first episodes? I forget.
I don't remember. It's been so long ago.
You don't remember? I forgot. Country song!
Oh, yes,
We're on it
exactly.
today. Could even Route 50.
I have. I've got a gig in front of actual people.
Fucking stole my gig, citizens.
I did.
Not really.
I'm filling in for this bright, promising young man. And yeah, I'm going to be doing the country thing for some sort of event. I've got my first poke in me. I'm going to be masked up, and I'm excited to be playing in front of people.
I'm aroused. How about you, citizens?
I don't know. Got to pose the question.
Drop it in the comments.
Drop it in the
Scale of 1 to
comments.
5.
I don't know if I'd say send us a DM, because there might be some photographic imagery that comes along with that I don't want.
Man, my DMs are like, it's just a cold, desolate wasteland, so feel free.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong you can do with my DMs.
Well, you heard it here first.
I'm 39, I'm open as hell.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Why are we here?
That goes beyond the podcast, that sounds like. That goes into like a, why are we here?
Why are we here?
Yeah, well, at least for, this next hour or so, hour and change, we are here to talk to the wonderfully magnificent Bob Oedy. And as you very well know, being the punk rock connoisseur that you are, Bob Oedy is the guitarist in The Grimm and the lead singer of Glue Gun, and which are two bands that have been staples in the LA punk rock scene since the 80s and 90s. And did sound for both of those bands, a few years ago when they, were playing and, doing the reunion thing and doing more shows again. And yeah, it's Bob is one of those guys that just has kind of always been involved in that scene, and I kind of want to pick his brain about that. But also, he's written 4 books, so I want to also pick his brain as an author and, kind of get into all that good stuff.
Well, wash your hands.
I got to, man. Hey, look at me. Am I not
They're
washing
covered
my
in
hands?
scabs, and his brain doesn't need whatever's on those scabs.
That's a good. Oh, yeah, with the picking and the whatnot.
With the picking.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think you said everything.
I did. So
Without further ado.
let's get into it. All right, Bob Oedy, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Welcome.
Glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so funny because when I sent you some of the shows and I was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? One of the ones that I had mentioned was John Scheimer's episode, and that's actually how we came to meet because I did sound for Glue Gun and The Grimm back at the Lancaster Moose Lodge, and that was a John Scheimer show.
Nice.
And
I remember
really
that. Good times.
Yeah, it was. And I'm really glad I got to, experience both of those bands because it was just something that, as I was getting it, that was right around the time I started getting into punk, was having to do sound for those shows because I was more in like the classic rock metal vibe before then. And it kind of bands like the Grimm and Glue Gun kind of opened up my whole world to like what that stuff was. So it's kind of interesting because it's kind of the same way you got into punk in that, but it was with the original bands, you know, back in the hardcore scene. So just starting off, I kind of wanted to get your sort of mindset with where you were at when you first started playing and how you first started picking up a guitar, what things were like, and how you sort of got into punk.
Oh yeah, well, there was a wonderful lady called named Hinda Adler on our street, and she was sort of like a very influential person in my life. And I was over at my friend Eric's house, and his mom came in the room. We were playing Led Zeppelin, the same album, the one with the movie they made the movie out of.
Song Remains the Same.
Song Remains the Same. We were playing it over and over and over all summer long.
Mm-hmm.
And she came in, saw me playing air guitar, and she said, "You know, Bobby, you should take up guitar.
Yeah,
you could have a band someday." And her telling me that made me believe it. I don't know. Nobody had ever said that before to me. The light went off, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was really excited by the idea. And I went out and I took some lessons from a girl around the block,
Yeah.
$3 an hour. She, taught me mostly church songs.
Yeah.
And then she told me how to do bar chords, and I learned a couple of barred chords, and I said, I think that's about it. I think that's all I need right now. And next thing I know, I had a band. I started a band and went from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's so funny too, because I was listening to a punk rock podcast you did, like prepping for this, and I just thought that was really interesting because your background is kind of not the stereotypical punk rock background when you tell the story with like where you were going to school, and then
absolutely
the first songs you learned were church songs, and so in a way it kind of makes sense because those are kind of the fundamentals of punk in the sense of like musically with maybe 3 or 4 chords, nothing too complicated, bar chords, stuff like that that's really easy to start learning.
Right.
Lyrical content, subject matter might be a little bit different, but I don't know.
So church was the pathway to punk rock?
Yeah, it's not a common story, but I think it's kind of interesting because did that garner any sort of weird reaction from your peers, or was it sort of weird getting in the scene with that sort of background, or were people pretty accepting?
Three of us went to St. Mel's Catholic grammar school. So
right.
I don't know if it brought anything weird about it. I mean, we were just a bunch of nerds. So don't get me wrong. We're not like, just a bunch of nerds that started a band, Yeah. But I took it really serious from like day one. I mean, I was into it,
Yeah. Right.
I knew I was going to have a band the second I picked up a guitar, and I started writing songs the second I picked up a guitar.
Yeah.
So cool. It was just a natural progression. Tim getting into the band was sort of funny too, because he came to see a previous band that I had, and he was really into it. And then our drummer quit, and I figured that was the end of that band. And he said, "Hey, I tell you what, I can find a drummer,"
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, he found us a drummer, and then we didn't have a singer, and it was like, well, here you are, Tim. You might as well be our singer,
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. It all came together very organically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's, going back and listening to the Grimm and the Glue Gun stuff, it really, comparing the two of them, like the Grimm definitely feels like a growing time for everybody in the band. It feels like you're discovering a lot about yourself, and it feels like it just reminded me of young adolescence, I guess was the best way to put it. And with the story of you guys kind of getting signed and putting out your first music and recording for the compilations and things like that, was that more of a intimidating experience for you than, say, if you had to put the music out yourself? Because there's kind of that parallel story of punk rock too, where if nobody signs you, you just go to a print shop and you print up record sleeves and you go and get the music printed up and you just kind of sell it at shows or you hand it out. And Was it more intimidating to go into a studio as a young person? Like, kind of, what was that environment like?
I don't think we ever would have put anything out if it wasn't for Mystic Records signing us when we did.
Yeah.
I was, in a way, I was looking for validation at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, we approached Doug Moody, and God bless him. He gave us studio time, you know, and he set it all up. I mean, it was, you know, it was amazing, really, the opportunity that we had. I was thinking about it just recently, about walking out of the studio and then going into the restroom, and the thoughts that were going through my mind as a 19-year-old kid putting out my first record.
Yeah.
We were on top of the world.
Right.
You know, we just, I mean, I don't know. It was very intoxicating. It really was. But like I said, I don't think we ever would have put anything out if it was just up to us. We recorded that demo tape, and I really needed somebody to say that they liked it, because our friends weren't that into it at the time, you know?
Right. Yeah. And that always is an interesting parallel, isn't it? It's that sometimes, you know, your friends just knowing who you are and growing up with you may not necessarily be as into your music as a complete stranger is. So sometimes it is like you are.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't know, just hearing that validation from somebody else can really, you know, be a motivating thing sometimes.
Well, from an adult, you know, that's going to put money up and that owns a studio. I just, you know, I don't know, you know, how did that happen? I mean, and the interesting thing is, he was always talking about my music career, you know, and I don't think I ever took him serious at the time, you know. God, I wish I did, you know, because we certainly didn't work as hard as, you know, NoFX or any of these other bands. I was trying to get out of touring. Every time he recommended going on tour, I was trying to get out of it, because I'm just a homebody, and I didn't want to sleep, you know, on a bunch of floors and stuff, you know.
Right. Well, and the Grimm really became kind of a staple, I think, in the LA, you know, sort of Oxnard, Ventura, like that SoCal punk scene. So it kind of made sense, and you had mentioned this before, where you were playing parties and other shows where they would be packed, and then, you know, the idea of necessarily going on the road wasn't necessarily appealing. And I kind of think that's the story of a lot of bands. There's a lot of bands that within a region of the country can really, you know, own that area, but they never really, you know, that's their turf, basically. So it kind of makes sense in a way.
And we didn't have any money. We weren't willing to do the whole starving thing. We were, you know, we were middle-class kids, and we didn't have any money, and the shows weren't paying us.
Right.
It was, and also we got off on the wrong foot. Our very first road trip, the show got canceled and cost us a bunch of money. And other bands pushed through that, you know, but for us, it really, you know, it was like soul killing.
Yeah. And hold on, take two. Setbacks like that can really be detrimental sometimes, especially if there is a lot of money involved and you put a lot of stock in whatever that project is. It could even just be doing your first tour, and if that tanks, you know, that could really be demoralizing for a young band.
Yeah. I was shuffling burgers at McDonald's at the time. I didn't have money to rent a van.
Yeah.
Pay the gas. You know, stay anywhere. I mean, it was. Yeah, that was a show with 7 Seconds. We drove all the way. It was all the way to somewhere in Nevada, but
they're a Reno band, right?
Yeah, Reno. That's what it was. Reno, Nevada. We drove all the way to Reno, Nevada, and there was no show.
Oh, man. And then you're like, well, what do we do now? You know, that's the crazy part about that. And well, that kind of makes me want to talk about a bigger point with this, with dealing with Mystic Records and then basically kind of getting thrown into the music world like that. That's a huge thing for anybody to take on at any age. But you being 19, and I think the rest of the Grimm at the time was 15, if I have
about 15,
Yeah. What was for me personally, I can look at, like, before I went to school and took music classes, and then before I joined certain bands, like, here's where my perspective was and my mindset was, and here's where I was at the end of it. So not summing up the whole history of the Grimm, but how is your mindset changing just as a 19-year-old kid and then having to deal with a label and then trying to book shows? And how is your mindset shifting as a young musician?
It was a little bit like herding cats, you know?
Yeah.
And we had a couple of partiers in the band, and
Yeah.
you know, I was the responsible one that was probably going to go to jail if anything happened. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it was just a lot of stress on me, to tell you the truth. I don't think the other guys had any stress at all. But for me at 19, people have always said I acted like a dad as a kid, you know?
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It was stressful. It was fun, you know, it was wild. It was out of control. It was more than I ever expected. You know, if I could go back and grab myself and shake myself, I'd probably just say, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. You know?
Right.
Put the flyers on the telephone poles for the next 30 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can do that. And we could have done that, you know?
Right.
But, yeah, you know, a lot of it's looking back at it. You know, I've got, obviously, as a 57-year-old man, I'm looking at it a lot different than I did at 19. But
yeah,
they were good times.
Oh, absolutely. And it is something that while you're going through that, people don't necessarily understand the stress that usually in a band there is kind of the one leader person or maybe one or two people. Sometimes everybody makes decisions, but usually it comes down to just one person, right? I mean,
on average, there's 1 to 2 dictators per capita per band.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's
trying to drag this information out of me for some reason.
Well, no,
I don't think I was ever a dictator, unfortunately. I think that would have been great if I was, you know. I think I was I don't know what, you know, maybe like a tour manager or something. Just come on, guys, you know.
Yeah.
Let's do this and let's do that, you know. They didn't always listen to me, I'll tell you that much.
Right. Well, that's like back in the day, I had Scheimer on the podcast, but this was a podcast I started with some different buddies and it never got off the ground. But he was telling a story about tour managing off and, having to be that way with, like, hey, Keith, the van's leaving, just like he has to be dad. And so when you're 19 and you're on your own, somebody in the band has to be the dad going, hey, put your shoes on. We got to go, and sometimes, it's not as fun when you're that person, and it can be stressful, and it's something people don't.
No doubt about it. I really dug that interview that you just did with Scheimer recently, because I know him, but I actually learned a lot from that show. About him. It was pretty neat. Him starting the restaurant, the Fatty Vegan restaurant, and everything else. So cool. And by the way, he and I both became members of the Moose when we played those shows with you guys.
Yep.
I'm still a member of the Moose, by the way.
Hell yeah.
And it was all because that one club, if you remember, tried to put that club out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all became members,
Yep. Absolutely. No, it was
the theater that shall not be named.
No, it was and that was, I can relate to that stress thing too, because there was a lot of times where I wasn't just running the sound for those shows. It was, I'm running sound, drugs. I'm loading in gear.
Sorry.
Never got to that point.
Not yet.
No, I was, running the sound, but also loading in gear, watching bands' gear to make sure nothing got stolen. I was doing parking lot security where it's like, all right, you take over running the board. I'm going to make sure that, like, everything's good and, like, nothing's going on in the parking lot. Hosing down vomit,
that building.
Yeah, and just...
Those are all fun.
I look back on those times, and there was a lot of great times that happened, but sometimes in the moment you get, like, caught up in stuff that you have to do or, BS that happens, and you kind of forget about that sometimes. Especially if you're in that band, you're in it all the time, with something like the Grimm. Especially, like you said, you were serious and committed to it, so you kind of throw your whole being into what you're doing.
And something I just remembered, too, was that, not too long into it, Doug Moody tried to convince me to get rid of a couple of the band members, And we were just friends, we were all just friends. So it was really, that added stress, too. I didn't listen to him until years later, but, that was kind of weird too. Like, hey, you should get rid of these these guys and
Right.
keep moving forward, kind of thing. And yeah, it was hard.
Now that's a whole nother combo.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say let's talk about that, because that's almost like the stereotypical, behind the music story where it's
Right, like you think you've made it, and then
Yeah.
they're like, nope, you're not good enough for the band.
yeah, and then they go, hey, it would be a better band if you had a better, drummer and bass player or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you go like, no, this is the recipe. This is what makes
Yeah,
the
yeah,
band
this is
the
it.
band.
I mean, we're all buddies, kind of thing, and
Yeah.
all for one and one for all. But
yeah,
it became apparent after a while that he might have been onto something at the time,
yeah. Well, and that's the
That's
part of
real.
that really is the sort of dad crappy part about being that person in the band, is that
Dad crappy?
yeah, just it's that unfortunate thing of, say you do have your friend in the band, but they're always showing up late to gigs. They're always, getting a little too loaded at the shows. Whatever it is, like any number of stereotypes you can name for a band. And then you go, well, we are friends, but this band's kind of, not firing on all cylinders because of this person and whatever habits
Have you ever dealt with that?
yeah. Well, I mean, I was just gonna
just
say,
asking.
I've been in all sorts of band situations where it's,
I bet.
it's, just weird stuff happens like that. But you get put in an interesting position where, okay, well, do I want to have to kick my buddy out of the band? And I get why you wouldn't want to do that at the time, because you're all kind of in it together, and even if you are getting stressed out by certain things at times.
Yeah, and the other thing was like, who's going to replace him? We don't know anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
How do you even replace a band member?
Right,
I don't-
exactly.
I mean, at the time, it seemed almost impossible. Like, how would you do that? So I don't know. I didn't have all the ingredients and everything. We just kind of worked with what we had,
Yeah.
and just kept kind of plugging forward and just kept doing it, and it worked out.
Yeah. No,
Nice.
it definitely did. And I wanted to ask, was it a difficult transition between the Grim and Glue Gun? I know whenever I've been in between bands, that could be a rough period if I don't have like an outlet for my sort of creative expression.
Emotionally needy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's, bands provide a lot for me as far as a way to vent and write and express myself. What was that transition like between the Grim and Glue Gun? What was
There
life
was
like?
no transition. I had really what happened is two of the roadies for the Grim said, "Hey, we're starting to jam and would like to have you sing for us," and it was like, all right, and they said the only thing was at the time I had like my hair stuck up and like that, and they said the only thing is you got to cut your hair, and I was like, oh man, all right, well, whatever.
Yeah,
And
whatever.
the next thing you know, we had another band, so and for a while there, both bands were playing at the same time,
Okay.
so yeah, and we really, when you listen to the first record that Glue Gun put out, those were Grim songs that just
Right.
didn't put out yet, so it was
Right.
sort of a natural thing. They were actually fantastic musicians. That's the thing that really
I like that.
was kind of
Glue Gun
amazing.
record.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah, The Scene Is Not For Sale is definitely a bop.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Definitely.
It's and maybe I'm reading into it too much, but just listening to the Grim, obviously, between the ages, like when you first made those Grim songs and the first, Grim record.
Yeah, the Orange album.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Orange album. And then going to the first two Glue Gun records, it just feels like a more cohesive concept. And that's what I was getting at earlier, where you're, discovering who you are and who you are as a musician and a creative person. And especially, maybe I'm going out on a limb, but it seems like Glue Gun was really kind of like a concept band in just the way you approached your show and the whole vision.
Yeah, I
of
was
it.
trying really hard to make it like a concept band, but it's hard to do when it's just the singer like putting the show on. You know what I mean?
Right.
I tried to convince the other guys to like get involved. Like I wanted to make almost like war kind of thing. Not
Yes.
quite that,
Oh.
but it never quite took off like that. It was just me, grabbing attention on the front end. So I'm a ham anyway, so it came natural.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we tried to do anything that we could to get people's attention. We smashed televisions. We I had pyrotechnics, and that's a whole nother story right there. But
Yeah.
I mean, we did some stuff that was pretty freaking out there.
Right.
Firing a blank gun off. If you did that stuff now, you'd get yourself shot.
Felony these days.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were telling the story of I think it was a song about man, I'm blanking on the name. It was Let's Rob a Convenience Store.
Yeah. I had that
and
one.
you would come out with the ski mask and then shoot a cap gun or a blank gun into the audience.
Yeah, it was no cap gun. It was
not
a
a
38
cap gun,
caliber.
excuse me. Yeah.
It would shoot flames about that far. And there was one time when a cop was at one of the shows. It was in Simi Valley. It was outdoor at a park.
Of course, a cop was at a show in Simi Valley.
And I went over to the cop and I said, "Hey, I got this part of my act, and I shoot this blank gun, but I want to let you know about it."
Yeah, so you don't.
And he was like, "Let me see that thing." And then he saw it. He was like, "Yeah, all right, no worries,
Wow.
And let me do it, which was amazing.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to ask with that, was there specific influences that, you drew from with that, or was it just trying to come up with the craziest stuff that you guys could? Because
good question. Gosh, I can't think of her name right now. There was I don't know. I'm sorry. That's how my brain works. But yeah, there was
No
a female band, fronted band that did some wild stuff, and there was just some other bands. Obviously, I was really into Kiss,
right?
So the idea of like a show just made sense,
Mm-hmm.
And then, Alice Baggs. I'm sorry, Alice Baggs did some wild stuff, and on a couple of videos I saw things like that. I was just into it. I wanted to grab the crowd by the throat, really, is what I wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to really get it going, really, really make it wild. And, on some respects, we pulled it off, but maybe it was a little bit too much for in the beginning, because I mean, there were small crowds,
Right. And
so
I imagine, if you're just going to a normal bar and club, and then you've got a band that's doing pyrotechnics and you're smashing TVs and throwing a frozen cow's head into the audience, it's just like, what is going on right now?
Dinner.
Yeah, exactly. It had, it got mixed responses, but the one time when it got a really
that's a reasonable thing.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Really awesome response was when Robbie Fields from Posh Boy Records showed up at the Anti Club, and I did the whole show, and I came off stage and I'm covered in this stage blood, and I'm trying to make my way to the restroom. I can barely see because the stuff's in my eyes and everything, And he comes up to me in this like metallic purple suit, and with an English accent, and I'm a sucker for an English accent. He was like, I wish to sign your band, And I was like, of course, of course you do,
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just, it was really cool. I mean, between his English accent and Doug Moody's English accent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, seemed like it made perfect sense.
Oh yeah. It's I can imagine, especially back then, pre-internet, seeing something like that and stumbling upon it. You must just think, if you're into that and you're kind of already along that sort of Kiss, maybe Stooges, MC5 sort of vein, and you see something like that, it just would totally blow your mind. But did you ever get banned from any clubs? Was that ever something that, did you do anything too crazy and then you were never invited back anywhere?
We got in trouble at the Anti Club because, I stole this idea from Henry Rollins. I made up a bunch of flyers that said that we were going to kill a dog in protest of abortion. And the Reverend Oedy was going to be there and the whole thing.
That's so great.
I put them all over all over Hollywood,
Oh
and
my God.
I actually sent a bunch of letters to some animal rights organizations and stuff. And we get to the club and there's cops there already. I mean, they've been there since 4 p.m.
Oh my God.
And we get there at 9, and this cop comes in and goes, "Hey, are you Oedy? You know, I was like, yeah, you know, and he's like, let's go outside and talk. You know?
Wow.
And it turned out to be kind of funny. We took pictures with them, and you know, we actually had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, I mean, Helen from Anti-Club was not amused, you know.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
there were, you know, when we did the pyrotechnics, obviously, we never asked permission.
Right.
We never brought fire extinguishers. We never, because you know, we didn't want to get shut down. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we did it all without any permission. And when I saw, you know, years later, when I saw that Whitesnake catastrophe, I remember puckering up a little bit, you know, like, oh, wow. You know, like, I didn't even think about that, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
we just did it. And there was one girl that got her hair burned quite a bit. But other than that, we never had, you know, nothing ever lit on fire or anything like that. It was just, but we could have, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I was gonna say, you
Moving
know,
right along.
well, I was gonna say, well, at least it was just one hairdo, and that they walked away.
Yeah, I had
relatively
one
unscathed.
accident where I accidentally plugged something in. I almost burned my face off it, but that was before the show even started. But
Oh.
you got to realize all the stuff that we had was homemade. We made it all ourselves and put it together. I wired it up, you know, with parts from work, and
Yeah.
That's
You
what
know,
we're here
it
to
was-
salute and profile is the DIY
Well,
community.
well,
So-
yeah, and as we
why
coined
we're
from an
here.
earlier episode, we're here for the weird, and that's about as weird as you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah,
yeah, we made our own lights. You know, I took those quartz lights from construction sites, and we made our own light system, and we did all this stuff because we were trying to make it look like a bigger production than it actually was. You know.
yeah.
Good on you guys. That's fun.
Well, it's something I won't say doesn't exist now, but it's something that I don't know. There was something
exist.
about like DIY. Well, yeah, and I don't know. I feel like with being in the age that we're in, when you have access to all of this information, that you would see more bands trying to be ambitious like that. I mean, maybe not with the pyro, but just doing crazy things like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems to be.
Let's go into hip hop, I believe. Not to interrupt you.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. You see the same kind of
It's
stuff.
a little bit more theatrical in hip hop these days, like the tattoos and the teeth.
Yeah.
And
Well, Horror is one of those bands I could think of that are trying to do something sort of similar to that.
you call me a whore?
Yeah, the band called Horror.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
call me a whore.
no. I was gonna say I'll do that in my spare time off camera.
Ouch.
But no, it's I don't know.
Sexually
Was
free.
how much of that was trial and error at first, or was it just kind of like you found something that worked right away? Just because you can say that, hey, we did all these things, but like I want to kind of go through the process of like how you would come up with an idea from start to finish. So like building the
Yeah,
lights
I
and building
mean-
the whole system.
A part of it was me, you know, having had worked in at a lighting house, Paladin Lighting, you know, in
Okay.
Hollywood, and part of it was,
Oh, yeah.
you know, being an electrician, and
Mm-hmm.
but some of it was just like guys going, "Hey, you should do this," you know. I mean, somebody showing up with a cow head. That's how we did it. I mean, a guy went, my friend Ron Coleman went and bought a cow head and showed up at our show with it, you know. And it's like, oh hell yeah, I'm going to use that. You know,
I think that's an
and
easy
then
get these days. That's part of the problem, maybe, is that you got to order a cow's head.
Yeah.
And
in
peop-
advance.
yeah, people brought me TVs, you know, and stuff like that. And you know,
Okay.
of course, I already had
Oh.
the sledgehammer, which we brought into the club in a guitar case because there's no way they're going to let you come in with a sledgehammer. But we did all this stuff. It was always on the down low.
Yeah.
The first time I ever used a knife in the show was a real knife. It was one of those big kitchen knives, you know. And the security guy came and took it away from me, you know. And of course, that was easy to do. He's a big, huge, hulking guy, you know. He came up, you know, give me the
Yeah.
knife. Oh, there you go, you know.
Yeah.
But then from that point on, I was like, well, I guess we ought to get like a rubber knife. Maybe there's something like that, you know.
yeah.
It wasn't quite as effective, but it was, you know.
Yeah. Gets the point across.
Yeah, we just.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's I wish there was more bands doing crazier things like that nowadays, but it also
Brandish a knife anytime you want me.
yeah, there you go.
Nice gig we're on. Let me know.
Well, and I'm glad
We took some heat for it.
oh yeah.
I mean, you must have. There's no even back.
Yeah,
in,
there
in
were
the day when
there were people
when you could
saying
get away with shit. That was pushing the envelope.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Bob, you were pushing the envelope, man.
Yeah. Yeah, we were pushing it, and yeah, the cowhead thing for sure. I mean, there were people that thought we were like doing satan. You know, it was like satanic or something.
Satanic Panic of the 80s and shit.
I wouldn't do that, by the way. But there were things that we took a lot of heat for, as far as they thought that we were putting on the show because we didn't have the talent, kind of thing, to back it up. You know?
Oh no.
Sure.
So I don't know. Yeah, it got a little hammy. You know, I remember my first wife said that, you know, like a couple times she was like, yeah, well, I kind of feel sorry for you out there. You know, it's like,
Oh wow.
hey, I'm trying to get the crowd going, though. You know what I mean?
Wow. Well, that's their first wives for a reason. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
Well, that's not what you want to have going through your head either. As you're doing something, you're like, oh,
that's
is
gonna
this
be
just
hard
hacky?
to get rid
You
of.
know,
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, and that's something else too. Was that were you ever hesitant to do any of that? Because I know that even, you know, as a performer, sometimes, you know, you can be really self-conscious about even the way you move on stage. So was there ever any thought into like, oh, I wonder if this is going to work? Or did something ever not get the reaction that you wanted? Or was it all
there
just...
were some things I didn't do. I mean, you know, there were some people telling me I should have like, you know, like stockings and garters and, you know, kind of, you know,
yeah,
like go with a like effeminate type stuff or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I never did that.
yeah.
There was, I don't know, you know, it was just some crazy thing. I had like this big giant like goblet from my mom's house. It was from the 70s, you know. It was like, you know, it was about a foot high.
Yeah.
And I filled it up with alcohol. And then I had like, I don't know, you know, I'm on stage and I'm telling people that Jim Morrison left this thing to my family, and, you know, we're passing it around in the, you know, the crowd, and everybody's drinking out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like going around the whole club, and it's like, you know, come back to me, and I'm like, man, you know, by that time, do I really even want to put my mouth on this thing? You know?
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, I don't know.
Oh,
It was just
God.
kind of weird. We did things like that. We did a bunch of stuff. I mean, I rolled a bunch of joints one time and threw them out in the audience. So we just did some stuff that, yeah, I don't know. You know, maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a one-time thing. You try it one show, and that's, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
No, but man, talk about like, you know, people are so used to like music as a commodity and not
Yeah.
as like something that's really trying to affect them emotionally. So I love anything that approaches that level of like stagecraft, like what you guys are up to. I love that, pushing that, like making people have to be like, whoa, what the fuck's going on here? Like that should happen. That
Yeah.
should happen, especially when it comes to punk rock
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
and all of Jesse's, you know, satanic metal stuff.
Well, I just love going to a show and not knowing what's going to happen when an artist can be on stage and just, you feel like anything could happen at any given moment.
Yeah, like you don't feel that way like watching Coldplay.
No.
As an example.
No, and it's...
Love you, Chris. Love you.
Cool. That was the best example you could have used.
I mean, right?
Well, and I don't know, when I think of sort of underground bands as far as having an epic live show, or bands that, you know, the bands that don't necessarily come up in the first part of the conversation, maybe because they were more of an underground thing. Like, to me, Glue Gun and Babyland comes to mind, where it's like, where you're watching a bit like that kind of craziness of a show. And to me, it's like coupled with, you can't just look at the stage show and go, oh, they're just doing all this stuff to be gratuitous. It's like you have to look at the music and the lyrics of it coupled with the stage show. And to me, it kind of makes sense with just the overall themes that you're talking about in the band, you know, and it kind of just fits in.
It was hard. We didn't have a lot of time, you know, even to set up. Like you have a very limited time to set up at a small club, you know. So you can really only do so much. You got to have it planned out, you know, and obviously everything that we did was, you know, well, not everything, but, you know, most of the stuff that we had in the show was in some way planned out because we had to set it up, and then we had to take it down. And the next band, a lot of times, were not happy with us. That was another thing. We did make some enemies along the way as well.
Oh, really?
A band coming
Lifelong
on
enemies?
after you, another band coming on after you've smashed a television set all over the stage, or got fake blood all over the microphone. We pissed off a few soundmen too.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but we I don't know. We try to be nice guys about it,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to stay true to the art. You got to stay true to the art.
Like, sorry about the broken glass, motherfucker.
Well, and after a while, you hope that if your name catches on at clubs and with promoters, you go, hey, if you're going to have glue gun, it's like, it is what it is. If there is guar, there will be blood, and you can't deny that, and you got to be prepared for it,
Well, we got on Fox News, which was kind of a big deal. That was a lot of fun. They had like 1 week about punk rock, and it was like, what the hell's going on here, and they interviewed me outside, and I'm just telling them about trying to rile the crowd up and everything, and that was just epic. getting on Channel 11 News.
Oh yeah,
that was fun.
Well, and I was going to say, I tried finding that footage. I found some footage of Glue Gun playing in front of City Hall for a protest. And
that was much later, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. But talk about that performance a little bit for people that are unaware of that.
Yeah, I almost can't even remember what was the person's name. Anyway, the military guy that let some secrets out. I can't remember what the deal was.
Bradley Manning.
Yeah, it was about
Chelsea.
Bradley Manning. So, so they asked us, hey, this friend of ours asked us, hey, man, can you play this, this demonstration, for Bradley Manning? And I was like, I at first I was kind of like, I don't want to do that. I'm an American man. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to do that. But then he said it's going to be on the steps of City Hall, and then I was like, oh yeah, we're playing that one,
Well, yeah, I was looking at this whole footage, and then you've got a gas can and you're pouring it on yourself, which I'm assuming there's water in there.
Yeah, it was just water.
Right.
It actually looked like gas though, because we mixed some juice in there with it, so it would look So, but there was a song called Powder Keg, and I made a little video out of that. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a great, fun place to play on the steps, the lights, with the cops all standing up there behind us, side by side, Yeah. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was fun. I'm really glad that show happened because our bass player, John, played that show, but he's passed away since. And that's really the only video I have of him playing in the band. So it was kind of a big deal, for us to have that.
Have some documentation. Yeah, no, I watched that, and that was just so cool. It's like you're literally playing in front of City Hall, and you're, dousing yourself, and it's like, what would make this protest better if you lit yourself on fire, and then you got the lighter with like the glue gun, like doctor trench coat thing, and it's just like, oh my God, this is fucking awesome. And it's like, I just wish stuff like that would happen more often, just more spontaneity and, not being afraid to like,
You know what my teacher says? Be the change that you wish to see in the world.
That's a good point. Speaking of you bringing up good points, I don't want to leave you without any questions because I know you've got some for Mr. Oedy.
Davey's good points.
Yes. New segment.
Well, my first question was about kites.
Oh, cool.
Yes, in some of the points that we were talking about with getting ready for this. Apparently, you've got a hobby for flying kites, and that's what
I
Davey
do.
found.
I like that.
Which is
I go to Ventura Harbor Village, the Surfers Knoll.
Yeah,
that's like my favorite spot. There's almost always wind there in the summertime.
That makes sense, actually. Yeah, Ventura's probably a dope spot for kite flying.
Yeah.
We sort of have like a routine there. We go to Andrea's Seafood, and we get some fish and chips, and then we check out this boat there that I used to tell my wife that I owned, but I didn't. It's called the
That's pretty awesome.
The Gentry Eagle. We always go check out the Gentry Eagle.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
Funny.
We got a website, not a website, but a Facebook page if you get a chance to like that.
Hells yeah.
And
Holy shit,
and then we go over and go to Coastal Cone and get some ice cream, and then we go out and fly kites, and it's just a blast, I just love it.
That's
I've
awesome.
been doing it for 20 years or something, and it's just like the same routine, but we always do the same thing, and I just love it, over time. Multiple kites, we string them together.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, do you get down with like the single, or do you do the double, the ones that can do the loop? Like
double.
Yeah,
strings,
double's money, bro. Double strings. That's what's up. I was curious about what was a formative experience that led you to study labor relations and write a book about union organizing and stuff like that? I'm curious about that side of things too.
Mm-hmm.
I've always defended people. Like, I don't know. It just comes natural to me. You know what I mean? To like stick up for people.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I was working as an electrician, and I was, although I went through the union apprenticeship and I became a foreman and everything. I really didn't care if the building burned down when I left. You know what I mean? I don't know if if you don't even understand. I didn't care. You know what I mean? I was just working, and I really didn't feel like I was going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I was always already kind of bringing people into the union because I was telling everybody about it from day one. Because as far as I was concerned, I hit the lottery the day I got in the union. I mean, they invested a lot of money in my education, and they gave me a real career.
Mm-hmm.
So then I from there I went on to recruiting, and so I studied labor studies and just went from there. It's just an interest of mine. And also I realized at some point that my knees weren't going to last till I was 60 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, hey, this working on construction sites, it's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel you on that, man, with doing some of the tech stagehand work that I do. It's definitely, you realize at a certain point that you have to transition into something else because you can't keep doing
I realized that real quick. I was working on the Metro Rail, and there was a crane accident there. There's, one thing after another. People getting hurt, I got zapped a couple of times,
Ooh,
as an apprentice. I don't know. I just, to me, recruiting and sticking up for people always just came natural. So I just figured I could make a career out of it, and I did. And I'm pretty close to retirement. It's been amazing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's pretty tight.
Obviously, it was a very safe route compared to like being a full-time musician or something like that. I mean,
but I mean,
I guess it worked out.
Yeah. No.
The backup plan is like the reality is that you can always write punk rock songs and always be in a punk rock band. Like as the older I get, the more I see that seems to be a truth.
Yeah.
But ain't nobody ever made a lot of money off of it, and that's also part of it too. So you got 5 kids and shit. You gotta find a good job. I'm all about that. I have a day job.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there's parallels too with. Not just, you're doing a lot of organizing and being in charge of things up until this point, even if it's just booking stuff for the band and planning all the logistics of that. And then also, I'm sure, you're experiencing things where, the band or, people are getting screwed over and you're kind of seeing things like that happen. So to me, it kind of makes sense that you transition into that field because you're kind of already doing a lot of organizing and maybe sticking up or speaking out against things anyway. So do you think you've drawn a lot of your previous experiences with bands and being in the music scene?
Yeah, and I still make flyers. I mean, it's kind of funny. A lot of that stuff, the making the flyers, putting them on, getting out there, like putting them all on, like hitting every single car in a parking lot.
Yeah.
In like record time. I still do that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting,
That's awesome.
There are a lot of parallels.
You're like, oh man, how many spaces are in this parking lot? Oh, I could do it in 3 minutes.
Right,
It's
down.
like, I got this.
And I'm going to make a headline. I'm not going to put more than 7 words on a headline, no matter what, because who's going to read more than 7 words?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. A lot of that stuff I just picked up, and the flyering and the bannering and just all that stuff. I make bands banners all the time. Pulley and sorry, I can't think of some of the name, but a lot of different bands. I made their banners for them, and I made it by hand.
That's awesome.
And there's a big festival in Ventura that I made this banner. It was like 30 feet wide, 20 feet high. Sewed the thing together and then spray painted it together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, just a lot of that kind of thing just came straight out of punk rock.
Yeah.
DIY.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Nard
really,
Fest, that's the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you see all of these stories that people who were in either really prominent punk bands or had a really regionally popular band and were just kind of a staple in the punk scene in some way, go on to have really successful careers. There's a good number of stories like that, and there's been a lot of talk about this with just that DIY ethos and doing it yourself and the work ethic. There's documentaries about it, but just your personal experience with it. It's, we've kind of been talking about this already. How do you think that work ethic kind of shaped you and pushed you? And what are some specific ways you would say it really, pushed you to like constantly be working, want to defend people, write books and things like that?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I've been really motivated. It's interesting because I was never motivated in school. I absolutely hated school. I had ADD, and I probably suffer from it. We've got, my family's got a history of mental illnesses and things. So all of that stuff came out in school. They're trying to put a round peg in a square peg in a round hole, whatever.
Absolutely.
It all came out in school, and so it was so frustrating. And I had a bad attitude too. So growing up was really difficult for me, in school and things like that. But still, I learned a lot, I guess. And but yeah, when I became an adult, I don't know. I was just. It might have been partly, my dad pushing me a little bit, but then, at some point you're pushing yourself,
Right.
And I don't know exactly what it was. I'm ambitious. You said ambitious earlier, and I was like, when you were talking about the band, and that's absolutely 100% true. So
Yeah.
I've been ambitious on a lot of ways, and sometimes to my detriment, but
right.
And I watched a show just last night where this guy was knocking a lot of these success gurus. And he was talking about how a lot of people have kind of fallen for this this new age, your thoughts produce your reality kind of thing. And I was like, wow.
Manifestations.
Yes.
Wow. I was watching all the people that he was putting on the screen. And I was like, oh yeah, I got his book. Oh yeah, I got his book. Oh yeah, I watch his videos. Oh yeah, and he's like, oh my God, and he was talking about what a con job it's been. And I, honestly, last night it was like, late at night, I'm watching this thing, and it was like, it kind of dawned on me, shit, I've been falling for that stuff for a long time,
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's I guess I'm just wondering, is it something to where punk rock attracts ambitious people with a really good work ethic, or it shapes it? Because to me, you kind of, you really wanted to put a record out, you really wanted a band, and then you were able to find that.
Yeah,
and then
if I say I'm going to do something, it happens. It just I'm working on a novel right now called Death Spoon. It'll be my first novel, and
nice.
It's taken a lot longer than I thought. I mean, COVID was wonderful for me. I've had some time to sit down and write. But I'm only halfway through, but there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever it's going to come out. You know what I mean? Once I start, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
well, that's great to hear too, because since you've been sticking to more of, I would say, a really factual sort of style of writing, whether it's the punk rock, like, Punk Rock Bowling Survival Guide or the $1 Million Organizer, it's informational sort of reading, which is awesome. So it's really cool to hear that you're going into, the creative writing side of it now.
Yeah. I wanted to do that. It's challenging though. I'll tell you, it's not as easy. I'm going to have to sit down and say, I'm going to write, and I don't do like some of these authors where they spit out 3,000 words in a day. I'm more like, I got to do 300 words, and it's a battle. Unfortunately, it's hard, but it's also really creative. I kind of surprise myself in some respects,
Yeah.
Some respect.
I wanted to ask, and for myself too, because as Davey knows, that I'm a writer, and I'm actually trying to work on more short stories, and I have a sort of music touring book idea that I want to do.
Right on.
And but it is something to where you have to sit down with it every day and work on it. And
did you say stories of touring?
Yeah, some of that, but also just a story kind of about touring, about being broke and not having any money in touring.
That's a great,
and so
that's a good subject right there.
Yeah, and there's been, there's a lot of the, anytime you hear the story of you still there?
Yeah, sorry, somebody tried to call.
Oh, okay.
Oops.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Whenever you get the story of a band, you get, say if it's like an hour long behind the music, you get 5 to 10 minutes of we were broke. And then you get the we were successful. And that's the rest of the story. We're successful, and then the turbulence that comes with that. Yeah. There's not a lot of the material on we're broke, and because nobody wants to hear about how you played to Lubbock, played in Lubbock, Texas for 2 people and they weren't interested, or that you played, stuff like that. So I thought that would be an interesting take, but I wanted to kind of pick your brain about what your writing process is, of how you whether it's, this new novel or if it's more of an informative book. What's your process for just sitting down and putting something out there that you're happy with at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, my books, my nonfiction books, I mean, if you really look at it, there are a lot of lists. I'm really into lists, I guess. It's come out after writing 4 books. It's like, yeah, I'm into lists. I can't deny it.
Yeah.
But I kind of broke it down into like individual articles that I wrote and that I thought about. Like when I was at Punk Rock Bowling, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. We have so much more fun than everybody else, because we're going to, Kiss mini golf. We're going to the Pinball Hall of Fame, on and on. And so I wrote one thing at a time. I'm not a masochist. I don't just sit down and until I'm going to write 3,000 words. I can't do that.
Right.
So it's, like I said, it's usually about 300 words at a time. And it's not like I wait till I get some inspiration or anything. I kind of like sit down and think of something and then I just start writing. Even my the novel that I'm writing, I didn't have the whole story. You'd think that I would, because I like lists, that I would have had an outline. I really didn't. I just started in and just I'm kind of making it up as I'm going along, and it's kind of cool actually.
Okay.
One of the stories is that you got 2 competing cults. So I'm going to make websites for each of them, and I'm going to make it where you can just join the cult. You know what I mean? Like,
okay,
wow.
$29.95, you join the cult, and you are in. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna.
Wow. Okay.
It's going to be a blast. I can't even wait.
Oh, I can't wait to read I can't wait to read it, man. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a really strong point too, because that's one thing I've struggled with, is that with starting to write it, it's like, well, where am I taking this? And just trying to settle into like, okay, you can just write this out and you can always go back and change it. You don't have to have everything already laid out in your head,
Yeah, that's what a lot of the pros talk about, just getting it on paper first. I I don't know if I don't know. I guess maybe I'm a little too much of a perfectionist or whatever to do that, but I don't know. I just write it down, and then I do go back at it a couple days later because, fresh eyes and everything like that.
Absolutely, yeah. That's definitely one of the trickiest things. Is sometimes you think that it's, oh yeah, this is great, and then you read it with just a fresh point of view, and then you're like, well, I'm just going to erase half of this. It's like the first few sentences were fine, but now I need to go back and change the rest of this.
Well, the funny thing is that I've learned, and one of my mentors that tried to teach this to me is that you really got to just make the cover first. I mean, I know it's insane, but you just got to make the cover first, because unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to read your book. I know it's annoying, but they're going to look at the cover.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they're going to make a decision on the book from the cover, and then move from there on. If you get the cover out and then share the cover too, so people can know what you're working on.
Yeah.
And so that they kind of belong to it or whatever before it's finished.
Yeah.
And then I've been signing up for a lot of these book contests. That was another thing that I don't know if you guys were familiar with. They used to put on these classes. Gosh, what was it called? It was like Learning Tree or something like that.
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
Learning Annex. I think that's what it was. Learning Annex.
Sure.
I took one of those classes, and this guy that put the class on was like one of the top self-publishers in the world. And he had just flown in from Dubai, and he put this little class on. It was kind of hammy. His name was Dan Pointer. And I took his little class for like, whatever, I don't know, it was like $60 or I got so much out of that class. It was unbelievable.
Nice.
And I've followed his advice since then, and it's been amazing. So he's since passed away. But he was an amazing guy. He had 101 books that he wrote,
Wow.
So he had a system that he put together, and it works. So yeah, you might look for some of his books to help you in your writing and putting your book together, and then promoting it. That was his thing, is promote your book. Because nobody's going to promote it for you. It's just like the music industry. Doug Moody made the record, and maybe it was in the catalog or whatever, but you still got to go out and get on the road and try to sell it to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What? Wait, you gesture at me like I'm supposed to fill the void?
No, I wanna make sure that you got your questions in.
Sure. What's the writing process like in the Grimm? Like, how did songs get made? Did you guys like jam songs out at rehearsals type of thing? Was it a grinded out thing, or were things pieced together from people's ideas kind of thing? I'm always curious.
Yeah, it's definitely changed over the years. In the beginning,
really?
in the beginning, I would just make like a riff and bring it to band practice, and we'd go from there, and so we'd have to figure out how to put a start at it, and then like it really should change at some point, and then somebody would make a recommendation, and then then it's like, well, how are we going to end the song, and then later on I'd put lyrics to it. But since then, I think now we're more like somebody will write most of the music, and then I try to put lyrics to it,
Okay.
Oh, cool.
I think I like the old way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I wanted to ask too. Like, initially, you were kind of the key songwriter in the Grimm, right? And so,
sort of. I take a lot of credit for it because I was the only one over 18, so I was the only one that could sign a contract.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So in the beginning, I took some credit for some songs I didn't write. And some of that, maybe I wrote parts of it, but I didn't write the whole song or whatever. But then later on, I did almost all the writing and Glue Gun and stuff like that. But we had a lot of cover songs too and things.
Okay. And so with the latest Grimm record that's come out, that's something that's more of shifted into the newer style of writing that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote the lyrics for sure, but a lot of the music, some of the music I wrote, but some of it was written by our bass player, and somebody brings in kind of like a completed song, and then just add lyrics to it.
Yeah.
It's a different way of doing it. I'm not sure I like it better, but whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes it's good to go back to where you started from, and other times it's, I don't know, just kind of changing the process too. It just depends on whatever works for that recipe.
And that's one of those things I'm always like, it's so unique and individual for every band, every project that involves like more than two people.
Yeah.
There's always that dynamic of like, how do these things get done? Who allows who to contribute to the creative space and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. That's why I write alone and I let Max help me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, it works differently for everybody. Well, I think I've hit all the questions that I wanted to hit on and all of my points. And if you have, then I'll say thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Bob. We appreciate it.
Oh, man, it's been a pleasure. I love it. And I enjoyed your podcast. And I encourage everybody to like and share and subscribe.
Oh, thank you so
Gracias,
much. We
sir.
appreciate it. Anything else that you wanted to bring up or plug, or besides the novel or what we were just talking about? Anything?
Plug it again.
Yeah, or plug it again. Whatever you want to do.
Oh, well, I mean, I always love plugging the Grimm. I mean, our latest album.
Yeah,
Nuclear World Order. Oh, you can't.
Let's get it
Not
closer.
going to see it too well, I guess. It's Nuclear World Order.
Yeah,
But
there it is.
yeah, it's an awesome 12-inch, and we worked real hard on it. I think you'll enjoy it, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say there will be a link to that below in the
I
description.
told you last week I moved it up here.
Oh, yeah.
Citizens, the link is above. I got into programming.
This is why you're steering the ship.
Yeah, exactly.
But there will be a link to the Spotify and other streaming services to check that out. And then if anybody wants to check out Bob's writing, there will be links to his websites in there. So please read his books. Please keep an eye out for that novel. I know I'm excited about it. So thank you for letting us know that that's going on.
Yeah.
And awesome. And anytime you want to come on and promote anything, you are more than welcome to, sir.
I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for having me on your show. It's an honor.
Thank you, man.
you.
All right. Have a good one.
You got it. Take care.
Saying wash my hands. Now it got me all weirded out.
Oh, you just spray Banaka on your hands?
Yeah.
That's
minty,
cool.
minty fresh.
I want to make out with your hands. I refer you to my earlier statement.
Dude, I was going to say, does Banaka date you? If that's your go-to breath freshener?
I think by now it's safe to say it kind of does. It's like, I mean, it's like I don't even remember it being FDA approved, but there it is on the shelf for you to spray in your mouth. I think it dates you to say I use Banaka.
Yeah, for me,
It dates you to say you use Altoids. I feel like.
Oh yeah,
I'd be like, oh, you're a '90s baby for sure. Plugging Altoids all day.
Yeah.
Cavities in your teeth.
cavities in your teeth.
Nowadays, what do they use? Like,
Well, I'll
kids
use.
just download their breath, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they get their breath from the TikTok, the damn
That's
kids.
what a TikTok is.
Yeah,
Freshens your breath while you watch.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm so old and dumb.
No, mine would be since there's a few years between us. Mine was always
10 sexy years.
yes.
I'm so weird.
That sounded so disturbing the way you just said that.
Let it lie.
You were like, oh yeah, 10 long, arduous years. It's like,
Yeah, well,
usually
fine.
your sentences don't match your beard, but in this case they just did.
Yeah.
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 But I would either say 5 gum.
Say what?
5 gum.
5 gum?
Yeah, 5.
Oh, that's a brand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And us young newfangled kids
That shit
enjoy.
looks just like the old gum. I've seen 5 gum.
Yeah, that or I was on the Listerine made these like breast strips for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still use those?
No, I just
Okay,
like
good.
five gum green.
They make you sterile.
Do they?
Yeah.
Well,
Or maybe that's Tide Pods.
either way.
Either way,
Yeah.
they freshen your breath.
Yeah. How great was that podcast today?
With the one we just did, the one we just survived,
Yes.
it was a podcast.
Yeah.
It was a podcast.
Yeah. No,
It's tone of approval.
yeah, definitely. That's
Right?
the tone. No, man, I wanted to kind of know more about, those bands than I just did on the surface. And also, too, like, I got to be honest, sometimes I have selfish motivations for having people on the podcast just so I can pick people's brains and ask them questions. And with me, having the foray into, writing and all that stuff that I've been doing lately, I definitely wanted to ask Bob about his creative process as a musician, but I was thinking like, okay, we'll talk about music, but I want to ask some writing questions and like, what's your process? So I got to do that, and now I'm happy.
I remember when you did that, and I was happy for you because I knew that you'd wanted to ask him about those kind of writery things.
Yes.
I was curious, too. I was like, I felt like there was more stories about you and stuff that he was maybe just being like, I'm going to be mysterious. And I'm like, I'm going to respect your mystery, Bob.
Well,
I'm going to respect your mystery.
that's one thing that like band stuff, you can ask more questions, but I don't know how that world works. So I don't know if like he actually can't say some of the stuff that he's worked on with that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how it works either.
I don't know. But, if you want to learn.
5th grade education.
I
We're
was gonna-
bassists. I mean, we should technically, I think we're legally disabled.
I don't know.
I mean-
I mean, I don't have a better parking
You
spot.
are, for sure.
Do you? Well, where's my parking spot?
You mean like your parking permit?
Well, yeah, you're supposed to be like, I
Your
don't.
parking spot is in the
I
parking
never-
lot with all the other ones.
I never got a blue piece of plastic in the mail. I can't,
Oh.
yeah.
There's a form you have to fill out, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
They don't just send it in like a bouquet.
I was going to say, if you could send that form on over, then I would greatly appreciate it.
I'll send you a
then.
form.
Well, that
I
way,
have the PDF.
that way I get prime parking at the back of the studio, and I don't have to trek and walk all the way from the 7-Eleven down the street there,
Oh, I get preferred parking with Prime, too.
Do you?
You're a member?
No.
Oh, then we're talking about 2 different things.
Well, actually, I
I
just
think
broke,
this happened at the end of the podcast, right?
yeah, I was going to say
Holy
I broke the rule of improv, which is you always say yes.
I didn't break the rules so much as I made it hard for you to follow the thread of the narrative, maybe. I'd be do that.
Yeah.
I'd be do that.
It's okay. I
But
forgive you.
did you have a nice time? You picked brain? You feel good?
I did have a nice time. I picked, I poked, I prodded. It was wonderful. And I hope you had a wonderful time, fellow citizens.
If you didn't, hang in for the next one. We'll make it better.
And if you did, please like, comment, subscribe, all that smashing of the likes and the buttons and all that stuff that needs to happen. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Healing powers.
Sonic City Council was created by Jesse Davidson and Davey Sipes and engineered by Max Taylor at Desert Sound Studio in Palmdale, California. Thank you to Disaster Cabinet for the outro music. Intro music written by Max Taylor. Sonic City Council is produced in association with Amps Music Academy and the Showcase Venue. For more information, visit theshowcasevenue.com.